Venezuelan authorities rejected a ruling of a British court against Venezuela's central bank appointment in the case of the Venezuelan gold deposited in the Bank of England. Colombian President-elect Gustavo Petro proposes to resume peace talks with the National Liberation Army, the ELN, in Cuba. In Angola, the first week of the election campaign went smoothly. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The government of Venezuela rejected the resolution of the United Kingdom to deny it access to the over $1 billion in Venezuelan gold held in the Bank of England. The Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez, described as an unusual decision the ruling issued by the British Justice on its gold reserve. The high official indicated that the authorities of different central banks of the world have communicated with Caracas to express their concern after knowing the ruling. Rodriguez called on London to rectify and correct the decision of the British justice system, which only obeys the foreign policy of the United Kingdom, which in this case consists in the illegitimate appropriation of the patrimony of the Venezuelans. She commented that the Central Bank of Venezuela took a position on the ruling and informed that it will resort to any legal instances to revert the sentence.
I must responsibly inform that President Nicolás Maduro has in his hand a conclusive proof that will be shown in the next days. I call on the British government. They have the opportunity to correct. They have the opportunity to return to a correct course in accordance with public international law, in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations in relation to Venezuela.
And in Brazil, former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva participated in the convention of the Brazilian Socialist Party, the PSB, in which the allied political organizations and parliamentarians are expected to participate. The vice presidential candidacy of the former governor, Geraldo Alckmin, was made official at the event to complement the ticket of the Workers' Party, PT, Lula da Silva, on his way to the October elections. The occasion was propitious to consider the approval of alliances that will add votes. The Brazilian Socialist Party is part of the Let's Go Together for Brazil movement, integrated by the 7 parties that support Lula's aspiration to return to power. The Ministry of Education of Bolivia informed that on August 1st, classes will restart in the country under the presidential and semi-presidential modality. Edgar Party, the head of the portfolio, released this information and pointed out that they will return in person in the corresponding winter schedule, always with the purpose of taking care of the health of the students in each educational unit. The head of the Bolivian portfolio valued that if an infected student is notified, as established in the school protocol, on-site classes will be suspended and the virtual modality will be used. According to Edgar Pari, the autonomous municipal governments must guarantee adequate infrastructure conditions in the educational units and biosecurity supplies. Social movements in El Salvador demand the release of political prisoners. The Committee of Relatives of Political Prisoners of El Salvador denounced that their rights have been violated and that due process has been disrespected. They also regret that a year after the capture of these people, many are still imprisoned, but none of them have been convicted due to the lack of evidence. The committee also rejects the persecution and imprisonment of opponents to the government through the political implementation of the rule of exception. This Thursday, members of the organization gathered in front of the capital of the country, carrying banners with the photographs of the detainees and lit candles symbolizing the hope for freedom.
We consider that it is not possible to live in a society where democratic spaces are closed, where organizations and freedom of expression are criminalized, where opponents are denigrated until they are subjected to the worst suffering, such as the loss of their civil and political rights, imprisoning and prosecuting them. For this reason, a year after the creation of our committee, we first demand that the regime of Nayib Bukele immediately release our family members who are political prisoners, since there is no evidence to prove any crime, and that the political prosecution against the opposition cases, and that the repressive role that has been assigned to the National Civil Police and the Armed Forces of El Salvador be stopped.
The leader of the Popular Resistance and Rebellion Bloc of El Salvador, Marisela Ramirez, assured that the Committee of Relatives of Political Prisoners will not rest until the people who are unjustly detained are released.
We are here to say that 1 year after the creation of the committee, we will continue to support and we will not rest until the Camarades unjustly imprisoned are free. We are here to say that more repression means more struggle. More repression means more struggle.
And Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit presented an update on the development of the international airport delivered during the past and the first meeting of the third session of the 10th Parliament.
The project will be delivered to the people of Dominica by 2026. We have selected the right partner to ensure that this becomes a reality. During this fiscal year, we look forward to the following key milestones to be undertaken: the completion of mobilization for the commencement of work, construction of culverts for waterways, commencing earthworks by the end of this year, and cotton field activities to level the site. The development of this airport will increase opportunities for contractors, construction workers, engineers, plumbers, electricians, and other service providers. During the high volume of work, the supplies which will be required, as well as the expected high level of employment, many people and businesses in Dominica are expected to benefit during the construction of the international airport.
We'll take a short break now and join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. The president-elect of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, stated he spoke with the Cuban ambassador in Bogotá, Javier Camaño, about the resumption of the suspended peace talks with the National Liberation Army, ELN. In statements to the press after a meeting with ambassadors from Latin America and the Caribbean, Petro assured that it will be up to the Cuban government to decide if it wants to remain as a host and, on the other hand, if the Norwegian government wants to maintain its role as guarantor. For its part, the ELN also expressed its willingness to sit down with the new government and talk about peace. Cuba was the guarantor and host of the talk process between the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia People's Army and the government of Juan Manuel Santos, which concluded with the final peace agreement between the two sides in the conflict.
We have talked with the Cuban ambassador, who is here today, about the resumption of the suspended diplomatic protocol that allows the continuity of the ELN dialogues there. The Cuban government will be the one to say if it wants to remain as host, and if the Norwegian government wants to maintain its role.
In Colombia, the Caribbean regional meeting of the Historic Pact with social movements to address the new government's agenda concluded. During the meeting, citizens and indigenous organizations that came down from the Sierra Nevada presented their concerns regarding the need to start dialogues with the armed groups that affect the region. Issues related to infrastructure, education, budget law, and political reform for the benefit of the population victimized by the conflict were also discussed, which will allow the new government of Gustavo Petro to bring opportunities to the Colombian Caribbean. And we remain in Colombia. There, the outgoing president, Iván Duque, enacts a law that regulates the formation of national congressional commissions. The legislative instrument establishes the structure of the institution and incorporates 16 new special transitory peace constituencies in the House of Representatives in compliance with the peace agreements between the state and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. Although the Legislative Act aims to strengthen the democratic participation of the communities affected by the armed conflict, it is a legislative tool that should have been incorporated from the date of the agreements. In Panama, the government endorsed on Friday the measures on the basic food basket, agreed in the single table of dialogue that is being held in the province of Cogle. During the talks at the single dialogue table, authorities formalized the control of the basic food basket, personal hygiene, and the cleaning products in compliance with the agreements of the meeting. For its part, the Great National Alliance for Panama, which brings together a total of 120 associations of agricultural producers, agribusinesses, and related organizations in the country, warned that it will not recognize the agreements established in the dialogue in Penonomé. The German humanitarian organization's maritime rescue ship arrived in the port of Taranto in southern Italy in the early hours of Saturday, carrying 438 migrants rescued last week in the Mediterranean Sea in 4 separate operations. The Sea Watch 3 finally obtained a green flag to a safe port from Italian authorities after days spent at sea sweltering in temperatures that reach 40 degrees Celsius. The intense heat has caused the medical evacuation of a pregnant woman, accompanied by her husband and a son, as well as 2 parents and their child with burns. Among the migrants aboard the Sea Watch 3 were 117 unaccompanied minors and 35 women, 4 of them pregnant. The migrants were currently going through registration and medical care before reaching the first reception structures, officials said on Saturday. Now we address other topics. In the United States, flash flooding caused by torrential rains has killed at least 25 people in eastern Kentucky and left some residents stranded on rooftops and streets. Local authorities confirmed the fatalities, including an 81-year-old woman in Perry County, as they expected more flood-related demises. Many roads resemble rivers, mangled the cars, filling the landscape, and muddy brown floodwaters lapped against the rooftops of low-lying houses in the state's Appalachian region. Some areas reported receiving more than 20 centimeters of rain in a 24-hour period. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear said a state of emergency had been declared in half a dozen counties, and 4 National Guard helicopters have been deployed to help with rescue efforts.
We have now lost at least 15 Kentuckians, though that number is going to grow. It'll probably more than double. We know some of the loss will include children. We may have even lost entire families. We have over 23,000 Kentuckians still without power. Many counties without water.
And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. In Angola, the first week of the election campaign went smoothly in the events prior to August 24th elections. The political tensions of the pre-election period dropped considerably, and the tone of the candidates has also become more positive, according to Luis Jimbo from the Angolan Electoral Observatory. The ruling MPLA has also urged its supporters to avoid the practices that taint the electoral process. The tense moments will persist until the August 24th elections, as evidenced by the refusal of an opposition march on Saturday in Luanda, with authorities and promoters fencing off divergent arguments. And about 3 days after terrorists fatally ambushed the soldiers of an elite unit of the Nigerian army in Abuja, the military reinforced and returned to the area of the attack to conduct a clearance patrol. At the end of the exercise, at least 30 terrorists were killed. The terrorists had fatally ambushed members of the Presidential Guards Brigade earlier this month in the Buwari area of the Federal Capital Territory. According to the director of the Defense Media Operation, Major General Bernard Onyeko, the clearance patrol was conducted by troops of the 7th Guards Battalion and the Special Forces in conjunction with the air component of Operation Real Punch. Onyeko confirmed that the ground troops also recovered 6 motorcycles, 2 AK-47 rifles, and 1 fully loaded light machine gun magazine during the operation. Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi on Saturday met with his Kyrgyz counterpart Jinbek Kulubayev. China and Kyrgyzstan have agreed to strengthen their comprehensive strategic partnership, Chinese State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi said, adding that both countries are committed to building a China-Kyrgyzstan community with a shared future. Wang made the remarks during a press briefing after meeting with Kyrgyz Foreign Minister Jinbek Kulubayev. He also vowed to jointly build the Belt and Road Initiative and deepen mutually beneficial cooperation. He said that China will firmly support all the measures taken by Kyrgyzstan to safeguard national sovereignty, security and social stability and firmly oppose external interference in its internal affairs. Now we move on to other topics. In Ukraine, at least 153 prisoners were killed and 130 wounded after a correctional colony in the Donbas region was shelled by the Ukrainian army. Most of the wounded prisoners were members of the Nazi Azov battalion and were transferred to the healthcare facilities in Donetsk, where many of them are in critical condition. The building was hit by US-made HIMARS MLRS missile. Health authorities and medical personnel have been hard at work trying to avoid as many casualties as possible following the attack by the Kiev on its own soldiers. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken held a telephone conversation where they exchanged issues on international interest. According to a statement from the Russian Foreign Ministry, the two diplomats discussed the situation in Ukraine, during which the head of the Russian diplomacy seized the opportunity to stress the goals and objectives of the Russian military operation in eastern Ukraine. During the conversation, Sergei Lavrov commented to Blinken that the arms supplied by the West to Kiev only aggravate the conflict and that the regime of Volodymyr Zelensky prolongs the agony of the Ukrainian people. The diplomatic representatives exchanged other views on bilateral relations, which according to the Russian Foreign Ministry are in urgent need of normalization. Russia's President Volodymyr Zelensky, the Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered to build a health center in the city of Mariupol. The Russian president also ordered the construction of a maternity center in Donetsk and urged the Kiev government to repair housing and infrastructure in the territory before the beginning of winter. This decision of the head of state comes after the leaders of the Donetsk and Lugansk People's Republics asked Moscow for assistance in the reconstruction of social infrastructure and residential areas.
The leadership of the Donetsk People's Republic asked for assistance in the construction of a multi-purpose medical center in Mariupol and a perinatal center in Donetsk, since the maternity hospital was old and it was also destroyed in the course of the hostilities. Therefore, please pay special attention to this and deal with this issue in coordination with the leadership of the Republic.
teleSUR English continues to grow. Its signal now reaches Europe. You can order it from your cable dealer or tune it yourself. These parameters that you see on the screen are in place since July 1st. Quite soon, further changes will be implemented for the signals in the Middle East and Africa. Now more than ever, the world connects to us and our stories are heard in other farther away nations. This news multi-platform will continue providing truthful content to oppose the hegemonic media's narrative and our faithfulness to our audience. So we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.